Hi, and welcome back to the third episode of the NYCC podcast. This one is for Islamophobia Awareness Month. This is the 10th year of Islamophobia Awareness Month in the UK. And the point of the Awareness Month is to have a vision to see a society free from all forms of Islamophobia. It aims to celebrate positive contributions Muslims make in our society, as well as raising awareness of the Islamophobia that also occurs within it. I'll give you a brief description of Islamophobia, then we'll get more into it as the podcast continues. By definition, Islamophobia is rooted in racism and is a type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness. Nearly half of all religious hate crimes are directed at Muslims, so it's a really important topic that we wanted to address as a council today. And we're really lucky to be joined by two NYCC colleagues, Francesca and Zaheer, who are here to talk about Islamophobia and this year's theme, Tackling Denial. Hi, both of you. Thank you for joining.
Hiya.
Hi, Nog. Thank you for having
I don't know
us.
if you want to do a super quick intro on the spot.
After you.
Well, thank you. My name is Francesca Floris. I'm an integration officer in Health and Adult Services.
Hi, my name is Zaheer Ishtiaq. I'm a system flow coordinator working for the integration team, same team as Francesca for Health and Adult Services.
Thank you. And you might actually recognise Francesca because she previously held the role that I do now and used to host this podcast. So I've put you on the spot in the other side now, Francesca. So I'm just going to kick off with our first question, really. The theme of this year's Islamophobia Awareness Month is tackling denial. Why do you think that this has been chosen as the theme to focus on this year? From looking at the stats, I can see Muslims are more likely to be the victim of religious hate crime than any other religious group in the UK, but it does seem sometimes like we can lean towards a feeling of it doesn't happen here. Do you think that as a society we have a habit of denying or downplaying Islamophobia in the UK?
I think we do. And unfortunately, it's difficult sometimes being a Muslim, and I have one of my best friends is he's white, he's and he's Christian, and sometimes even when he wants to, he's one of the most supportive people I know, and he's very supportive, but even from his perspective, he sometimes doesn't realize how bad it is when we're together and how bad it is and what it's like. And I think whilst people from from a non-ethnic minority background, and I do say ethnic minority background, do want to, some are very, very good and want to support you and everything, but unfortunately, unless you've been in the situations, you won't realize how bad it is. And it's very little, it can be very little and subtle things that people don't realize. And I think that's the thing, is that it's the term, and I'm hoping I'm allowed to use this term. If I'm not, please tell me. The term Paki.
Mm-hmm.
It's people are, oh, it's only a short abbreviation of the word Pakistani. Well, it's not,
Mm-hmm.
is it? And that's it. It's that, and for me, that is ignorance.
Yeah.
And it's that now that doesn't mean, and it's like seeing someone like very recently, you will have seen, some people may have seen the True Geordie talking about Andrew Tate, who converted to Islam recently.
Mm-hmm.
And he, in his joking manner, happy, laughing, joking, comparing all Muslims to suicide bombers, calling all Muslims suicide bombers. That is Islamophobia in there and then. For him, it was a joke, having a laugh and a joke about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is it. This is it. It's that perception as well that all Muslims are terrorists. All Muslims are they're all curry munchers, as I got called many times when I was younger. But yeah, I'll pass it over to Francesca, who's going to be more eloquent than me anyway.
No, not at all. I think what Zaheer shows as well is just how much of an overlap there is between racism, and Islamophobia, and then there's a whole wider political context of things as well that means that something that might be said that people may consider as being harmless or a joke or banter can have extremely very serious repercussions on people who Muslim, and especially, or even not Muslim, but can be maybe perceived as Muslim. So, for example, there's been lots of cases of Sikhs who wear the turban who have been confused with Muslims because there's an association that, because in many cases they're brown and they're dressed in a way that feels foreign to other people, that then they must be Muslim. And I think it's understanding, because I know some of the major criticism against the idea of Islamophobia as a principle, in terms of like denial of its existence, is that there's either racism or there's criticism of religion, and that there should always be a space for criticism of religion. And I think it misunderstands actually what Islamophobia is. There is always, you know, there is space to discuss religion and have your own personal views about different philosophies. That's absolutely fine, but there is a difference between that and Islamophobia. It's the difference between, you know, being respected to have your views and having healthy discussions where they might be, or, you know, being considered with suspicion every time that you walk into a room, or you know, having policies that are placed specific on to you and your communities, or people that look like you, that mean you might experience additional policing when actually you present no threat. There's a whole like geopolitical framework that makes Islamophobia actually very, very real and very, very scary. But yeah, and it's not just racism. There is a very messy intertwining of bigotry against Muslims as a religious group, and also the fact that the vast majority of Muslims are from non-white backgrounds, and how that intertwines. Like, you can literally, and I think that's why that definition, which some people deny, but it's very real, in that I'm a white Muslim, but as soon as I wear a headscarf, the association between the headscarf and my faith means that people will shout at me to go back to my own country. I'm not actually English, but they wouldn't know that. But even if I was an English Muslim, they would be saying that same thing. And it's very much like, rather than it being a faith that anybody can have, including English, you know, white Muslims who converted or, you know, had it passed down to them, you know, there's that perception that you're not from here and you're not part of our collective history. But actually the history of Islam in Britain is really rich and long.
Yeah, I mean, it's so long, isn't it? I actually did study of religions for part of my degree, and it goes way, way back. And actually, it's not always been this negative thing, like the way I think it's perceived now. Yeah. As you say, it's not about, anyone can criticize religion. We do have the right to do that, but with, you're so right, Francesca, Islamophobia is not saying, it's not picking that apart. It is, the stereotypes and misconceptions and sort of ideas that come with that. Yeah.
I think there was a recent thing on Twitter. There's the Muslim hikers on Twitter who were on Country Files recently, and they came on Country, and the amount of abuse they got after being on there was ridiculous. And it's like, why? Because they're hikers and they're Muslim and they're going together. And yes, Muslim hikers, but there's also non-Muslims who go there and are part of that. They're called Muslim hikers because you know what? Being a Muslim, I'm telling you, it's not a normal pastime. Hiking, so it is, so they got a group of people together who wanted to do it, but the amount of, the famous, and Francesca said it before, go back to your own country. I am in my own country. It's I make a joke of it now, and I have big I tell you how old I am now. I'm 36. I've been abused, racially abused since I was 12 years old. I still remember the first day. And it's like, it's water off a duck's back, doesn't bother me in the slightest anymore. But there are people like youngsters who are growing up with that now, and it's worse now than it's ever been. And it really then doesn't help when you have your government saying certain things, around, especially at the moment around immigration. They come in here, immigration, and I can't remember the phrase that's
language was invasion, I think.
Yeah, that was it, invasion.
Invaders.
And that's it. And the thing, and what is it? And And the funniest thing is that, oh, we want to close our borders. Brexit was, we want to close our, but we don't want anyone coming in. We don't, and people coming from, Pakistan and India and from Bangladesh, but they couldn't come here anyway. It's not, but that was the rhetoric that when you went out and people went out and sports, we say, oh, what is it about? We want to control our borders. Who do you want to control? All those people come from Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan. But they can't come here anyway. But that's what they've been ingrained in their head. It's the brown people coming into this country that are taking our jobs. Yeah. They're ruining our country. And that is what they're being told, and that's a sad thing. And like I said, with just going back to the Muslim hikers, they're a group of people who go out hiking. They went onto country files and got abused for it, and it's sad that would happen in 2022.
Yeah, and it's sad, but I guess maybe for you two, it's maybe not that surprising. I know that you'll probably have different experiences of this, but I wondered if you could tell me a little bit about your personal experiences of Islamophobia in your everyday life. I know, Zaheer, you just mentioned that you've sort of experienced it since you're about 12. But yeah, I just wondered if you could tell me a little bit more about that, because I think sometimes it's helpful for people to understand. And as you were saying at the very beginnings of here, it doesn't have to be a violent act. It can be anything from small things that people say. Francesca.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I've had a unique position in that when I because I converted to Islam when I was 15, and then it was only when I was around 17 that I started wearing a headscarf. So I've been in the unique position to know what it's, and also my name is my birth name. I haven't changed it. There's nothing about me that suggests that I'm Muslim in terms of what people perceive to be Muslim, other than now that I wear a headscarf. So I've been in that position where I know what it's like to not experience that prejudice, and I know the difference of when I started wearing it and feeling that. And it can be those small things, like, if someone's kind of looked at you out of curiosity. I get that a lot when I go back to where my dad's from in Sardinia, because there's a growing number of Muslims, but there isn't that many. So you might be the only one within a large radius. So yeah, it's people can innocently look and be curious. That's absolutely fine. But I definitely at this point know the difference between that and the very much feeling that there are daggers on you and that you are in a space that people don't feel like you should be in. Even like going to my local fish and chip shop with my friend who's Bangladeshi origin, and I think the element is because he's brown as well. There's that more of a racism at play, but I also think it's obviously associating us as being Muslim too. We felt uncomfortable one time that we went there just because of the level of stairs and the service that we were getting. It just you just know, but also there's some major events like especially when there's something going on in the world where there is that focus lens on Islam and Muslims. For example, with the Manchester Arena attacks, you do have that anxiety leaving your house thinking, is anything going to kick off? Because people are, angry, feeling a lot of emotions, don't know where to direct them, and sometimes people don't direct that in their most healthiest ways, and that can lead to, hate crime and other forms of Islamophobia becoming very much more overt and dangerous. And for me, I was walking to my car, and I just nearly finished being in town. I was with my mum, who's not Muslim, and I was so close, and I was feeling almost relaxed because I was like, oh, thank God nothing has happened. And then a guy quite taller than me, like literally I was just walking past him very much like relaxed, and he just came straight into my face and started screaming in my face, telling me to go back to my own country. And you always feel like you've got tools and things you can say and be like, actually that's not appropriate, or speak to me, like I'll be able to like back yourself a bit. But yeah, I think because I'd mentally like felt like it was okay, and then that happened, I just it was cried the whole journey home and the whole evening, because I was just it just shook me up, and it's scary. And I think as a Muslim woman, I think in terms of Islamophobia, we're very much visible, and strictly, like, I think the data suggests that perpetrators of Islamophobic hate crime are mostly men. So it puts us in a very vulnerable position when especially when we're alone, and when we have experiences like that. You can worry about your safety.
Yeah, there's like a real intersection, I guess, there with sexism and Islamophobia, and then on top of that, if say you were also a woman from an ethnic minority as well, you've got like a triple discrimination there.
And I know from my friends, they feel it more, who are not non-white. There is definitely a difference there because my skin is whiter, in terms of my experience, and because I'm white.
Thank you for sharing, Francesca. Zaheer, did you have anything to add to that on your experiences?
Yeah, I think Francesca kind of hit every single point really, and just from my when the Manchester it was when the France attack happened. It was when the attack happened in France. I remember the day after going out, and my wife wanted to go. We needed to go to Tesco. We needed to do some shopping in Burnley, and Burnley is where the BNP kind of started. So I'm like, oh, do we really want to go on? Are you sure? Sort of thing. She said, oh yeah, it'll be fine. Well, let's go. That's fine. Went there. We got out and saw about 5 or 6 lads. I could see them. They'd seen us come in in the car, and I'd seen them, and I just thought, okay, never mind. Let's go in. There's loads of other people around. We're fine. Crowds of people. We're fine. Got out the car, and they just started throwing racist abuse at me and my wife. I won't say the stuff that they said. And then spat at us. And I'm like, at that time, had I been on my own, I probably wouldn't have been too bad. I was with my wife, and my first thing is I gotta make sure she's okay. I'm like, let's get back in the car, let's go home, and got back in the car. We went back home, and she was so shook up with that. And it's just she was very, very, so she didn't go out for about a week or 2 after that. She was scared to go out. And it is always like that. So she even now when she goes out, and obviously goes wherever she wants, whenever she wants, but I'm always worried when she's out on her own, and very rarely I'll always say, take so and so with you, take so and so, don't go on your own, take so and so, or I'll take you, where do you want to go? I'll drop you off, and I'll make sure we're outside, you can go and do your shopping, whatever. And I've spent I've spent many a time just sat in a car park while she's been doing her shopping, which is fine, and that is because I am worried about what will happen. And whenever there is something that happens, like the Manchester attacks or the French attacks in France or whatever, I literally walk around with my head on a swivel, just looking around. If I'm walking anywhere, even when I'm in my car, I won't put my window down if it's hot, because I've had things through. I've had someone spit at me while my window's been down, because because I am who I am. I was literally driving past and just got racist abuse thrown at me. So when things like that happen, it just heightens everything, and it just makes it a little bit more. And the thing is, it's really sad to say, but I'm used to it now. It's a normal way of living. It's really sad that that's how we as Muslims have to live and have to think. You know what? Yeah, probably gonna get racist abuse for this. So yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, but it is. You just learn to live with it at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it just must be so disconcerting, to have that added anxiety whenever something happens on the news that is associated in the media with Islam. That then adds so much more, because you're just almost waiting for it to happen.
And the media don't help with anything, because there's a report done around whenever there's something bad. I suppose and a Muslim does something, it will be there Muslim in the headline, will be Muslim, Muslim, and it'll always be a terrorist. It'll always be a terrorist. However, if you're someone who isn't Muslim, and the picture will always be a negative picture of that person. However, when you get somebody who is white, who does something, for instance, what happened in New Zealand, where 53 Muslims were killed when they went at the Christchurch attacks, the picture of him was of a blonde, blue-eyed, bald-headed gentleman who eventually said they couldn't take any photos of him. But the initial photo was a nice photo of him. It was a great photo of him. Even when this gentleman, why am I calling him a gentleman? This person who did the attacks down in Kent recently, it was in Kent, wasn't it? Recently with the at the where is it from? Where was it?
Refugee,
the refugee
asylum processing.
Yeah, there. The photo of him in the media was a very nice photo of him in the media. It was of a, like somebody who, and it's always seen, the family man did this, or a person. When they're white, it's fine, but when it's a Muslim, it's very negative media, and that doesn't help when you have the media putting that sort of information out there. Muslim terrorists did this, and then you get all this, the Daily Mail, Sun rubbish always coming out about how bad. And then what happens at the back of it? Every Muslim leader then needs to come out and say, we don't acknowledge this. This is not what we do. This is not right. There are 7.8 billion Muslims. Not even 0.0001% of them, are it's those who are the bad ones. However, the rest of us get portrayed like them, like these idiots with some of the things that they do, and they are idiots because they're not Muslims at all. Anyone who does terrorism isn't a Muslim, in my opinion. I shouldn't say that. I don't have a right to say that, actually. I don't agree with what they do, and it's wrong what they do. But the thing is, the media will make all Muslims are the same, all Muslim terror, which is why you get rhetoric and stupid people like True Geordie saying, one Andrew Tate do what all Muslims and go blow himself up. That's why when I got called someone said I looked like a suicide bomber when I had long scrubby hair. We worked in North Yorkshire. Not a staff member, it was a client. But yeah, so this is it. And I think one of the things, I'm looking at the time, I'm very conscious of the time.
Yes,
so
thank you.
I'm very conscious of that, so I'm going to say one last little thing before we go into some of the things. I remember one thing, I worked in direct payments, and I used to go to see this lovely lady in Ingleton. And one of the last times I ever met her, she said to me, Zaheer, I'm really happy I met you. I'm like, Liz, why was that? She goes, if I hadn't met you, I would have thought all Muslims were terrorists. That was, and you know what? And I was like, and she's a lovely, lovely woman. Absolutely loved going out to see her. But that's what from the media, that's what she had received.
Thank you for sharing that. Right, I'm just going to go on to the next question because we are running out of time.
Yes.
So this one is more for Fran, I think. It feels like a lot of Islamophobia is based on misconceptions and stereotypes, like we've just been talking about. And I wondered if there's any misconceptions that you would like to use this time to address. I think when we chatted about it previously, we were talking about the hijab and, the meaning behind that and, the misconceptions that come with that as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think because wearing the headscarf, hijab, is a very public symbol of being a Muslim, and it's what a lot of people associate with Muslim women wear this, and that's true. Many Muslim women do wear a headscarf, even a niqab, or other forms of kind of Islamic or modest dress wear. But there is a lot of the time assumptions that every Muslim woman that does so is forced, which from my experience personally, from all the friends that I am close to who wear a headscarf, I've been in a lot of large Muslim circles especially at university. I used to work for a Muslim charity, and so I know a lot of Muslims across the spectrum from various different communities with different from different sects within Islam, different communities from different areas, from different countries, so a diverse range of people. And from my experience of talking to them and getting close to them and their experiences, it's not that has not been the case. It's been an active choice for them. In fact, there's been quite a few Muslim women that I know who actually actively had to encourage their parents to let them. I don't know what the word is, but basically had to fight, essentially had to fight for the right to wear them because their families were very concerned that if they wore it, what if it put them in danger? But that's not to say, obviously, I know that there are, as within any community, there are those that will use whatever tools they have around them to, you know, coerce people into doing what they want them to do. And it would be like, it wouldn't be right to say that there is no case where a Muslim woman might be forced to wear a headscarf. But I would say for the vast majority, that is not the case. And similarly, like I know currently with in terms of the protests in Iran, you know, there's a lot of discussion around the headscarf, and I think that's completely understandable. And it, you know, ultimately women should have the right to choose what they wear, and that includes if you want to wear the headscarf or if you don't want to wear a headscarf.
Yeah.
But I would say from my personal experience and from people that I know and what I understand generally from my community, a lot of Muslim women take very much pride in wearing the headscarf, and it means different things for different people, but it's an important part of their expression of their faith. And for me it is.
Just
Yeah.
and kind of one thing that I just want to pick up on as well around Muslim women in Islam is the misconception that Muslim women aren't treated well, and that they have, you know, their heads off, they force, etc. But what people don't, after the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, became Muslim, the next person to become Muslim was a woman. You know, she was the first person to become a Muslim was a woman. And you know, 1400 years ago, when at the time when Islam started, it was said that women will, in Islam, women will keep their own name. So in the last 10, 20 years now, we've come to a society where the woman can have an option to keep her name once they get married. However, in Islam, not culture is different. Islam is different. Islam says a woman should, after she gets married, should not change her name. She should keep her own name. However, like I said, this was 1400 years ago that this was said and agreed that this is how it should be. But you know, society is now coming to terms that yes, women should have the right to keep their own name. So if Islam oppressed women the way people think they do, you know, there were so many things I'm sure Francesca herself, you know, could go through their millions and hundreds and thousands of things, and of why, you know, the difference is what people think and actually what it is like to be a woman in Islam. When you look at it, and that is, so it's a misconception, a huge misconception about that women are oppressed in Islam.
Yeah, thank you. And that's just leading on to my final question, really, because I know obviously the topic has been Islamophobia, and you know, you've been sharing lots of personal experiences which are quite raw, and you know, it's not been the lightest of topics. So I just wanted to ask you, you know, what do you love about being a Muslim? Like, what are the things that bring you joy? And you know,
I mean, for me, sorry if I can go first. For me, I mean, I chose this faith, and to be honest, I think everybody at some point, if either you choose or you choose not to follow the faith you may have been raised in, or an alternate faith. But for me, there is in Islam there is can you hear the dogs, by the way? No,
only slightly.
Okay. In Islam, there is a thread of social justice that runs right through it. It represents the core of our faith, and that to me is something that led me to choosing Islam. But for me, on a day-to-day basis, it gives me grounding. It helps me in terms of how to go through hardship and even success, or when great things happen in life, to keep you grounded in terms of who you are, and remembering to be a dignified person, and how you treat people that can do nothing for you is actually more of a reflection of who you are, and all that kind of things. And in terms of being a British Muslim, or just a Muslim in general, there is definitely a sense of community and camaraderie, and I think part of that is based in faith, but I think also that is shared experience, like me and Zaheer have talked about today. There is an awareness of that, especially at this time. It is quite a trying time, and so, you know, there is that element of a wider support. Sorry if the dog's there. I'm sorry if you can hear him. But yeah, that's
Francesca.
Yeah, no, I think Francesca hit everything there. I think one of the things that I love about being a British Muslim is the community aspect of it.
Yeah.
I could go absolutely anywhere. If I see another Muslim, I could just say assalamu alaikum and they will respond wa alaikum assalam, you know, and it's that peace be upon you, you know, it's that love that automatically you see another Muslim and it you know you've got that, you can respond, that you can have a conversation with them there, you can go. And I think I saw a very powerful picture of people praying in a hospital, and the janitor was the person who was leading the prayer, and he had doctors behind him, nurses and consultants behind him. In Islam, your status is not important as a Muslim. Your status doesn't really matter at all. It doesn't, and that is a beautiful thing, that your status isn't important. It doesn't matter if you're a consultant, you're a doctor, you're a prime minister, whomever you are. Islam, everyone is the same, and especially when you go to Saudi Arabia, go to Umrah or go to Hajj, everyone is there in 2 pieces of cloth. That's it. For men, will all be in 2 pieces of cloth. That's all they have. Everyone's exactly the same. In Islam, it doesn't really matter, you know, what your status is in the world. As a Muslim, you're a Muslim, and that's what's important. And yeah, I love being a British Muslim. I do love it, and I don't really care what people say. And it's like I love being in this country. Don't get me wrong, I love being here. I couldn't imagine being in another country. I love being in this country. I love living here, and it's you know, some, like I said, one of my best friends is not a Muslim, you know, and he's yeah. So it's great. It's good being a British Muslim.
Thank you. And hopefully, you know, hopefully people can learn from this episode if maybe there's things that they didn't know about Islamophobia, and I'm sure that everyone will really value both of you sharing your experiences. It's been really great. So that's a wrap on the end of this episode, and if anyone that's listening to this wants to be part of another episode, please just send me an email and we can get that set up.